what's the number one thing that filmmakers do wrong when it comes to raising money? And I always say, and I've said it, you've heard me say it a million times, they go out too soon. They're not ready. They're not prepared. They're not in the position to be talking about that.
This episode is brought to you by the best-selling book, Rise of the Film Entrepreneur, How to Turn Your Independent Film into a Money-Making Business. Learn more at filmbizbook.com. I'd like to welcome back to the show returning champion, Franco Sama. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing great, Alex. How about yourself?
Well, you know, it's a weird time in the world. It's an interesting time in the world right now. We're all locked up here, self-quarantining ourselves.
Same here. Yeah.
It's a weird time. We're going to talk a little bit about the weird time as well. But we were just talking off air, and it's been last time you were on the show was episode. I forgot what episode it was, but it was 2017.
That's right.
And it was one of the more popular episodes we've ever done. And I know you and I have joked over the course of the last 2 years that you are now a celebrity at AFM, at film markets, at film festivals. People walk up to you and say, "Aren't you the guy from Indie Film Hustle's podcast?"
They do. They still do. It happened 2 weeks ago.
It's and you always, like I was saying, you always give the best stories because it's never just like a guy just randomly meeting you. Like there's always a situation, whether it's the place or whether it's the people involved, and there's always a character involved.
And I got to tell you, it really makes my life interesting. Because other than that, my life isn't that interesting. But it's so cool because it's so unexpected for me. You know, I've never had that in my whole life. People have known me sort of from my work.
Sure.
But they've never known the face behind it. You know, they just know the name or the company or something. But for somebody to literally walk up to me either out of market or in just the general public population and recognize me, and not only recognize me, these guys can actually quote me. Like they know some of my catchphrases, and it's freaky. It's almost like it feels a little stalkery. You know, it's like, how do you know so much about me? But I'm very flattered every time it happens. I really am. And I'm very grateful well, first of all, what I'm really happy about is that they are hearing the message, you know, and that they're receiving the message, because that's why I do this, right? Isn't that why any of us do this is, to go out into the world and speak on these types of issues around our business and our industry and financing. And the whole point is to educate people, to help them not make these gigantic mistakes that could potentially end their careers before they even have one, and to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm that guy, number one, and I was lucky to get out of it. And I've seen it so many times. So when I hear that, and I know that people are listening to you and they're listening to me and they're hearing what we have to say, and that they're actually taking that information seriously and implementing it into their work and into their lives, there's no greater compliment for me.
You are by far the most recognizable film finance guy in LA. There's no question about it. You can't even walk AFM without being attacked 3, 4, 5 times every second.
Yeah.
So it's
At one point it all happened at one time, and I'm telling you, the people that I was hanging out with, for sure, were convinced that I was running around handing out hundreds and telling these people to come up, pretend to know me. And because it was just so weird. It was very, very. That was a little uncomfortable because it literally happened like with 4 different people within a span of about an hour. And that was just a coincidence, but it was, that was when I really, my eyes opened. I went, wow, this medium is so powerful. It's incredible.
I do what I can.
The work that you do, because it's not just, when I talk to people about Indie Film Hustle, we get into these conversations about all of the work that you do and the different, podcasts that they've heard and the value that they get out of that. And so I'm always encouraging people, number one, get on board with Alex. And I mean it. I don't just say it because I'm so grateful for our relationship, but because it's true.
I appreciate that, Franco. I appreciate that. And you are, you're a straight shooter. In the world of film finance, there's not many of you out there. I call you a unicorn. There's unicorns out there. There's just very special, unique limited amounts of people in certain areas of our business, and you are definitely one of them. So let's get into it today, my friend. A lot has changed since 2017. A lot.
Yes.
Back then it's 2 years ago, but back then, SVOD was all the rage. And OTT was going to be the big thing, and now it's AVOD. And there was no Disney Plus, there was no HBO Max, there was no Peacock, there was no, Tubi was barely getting off the ground. Pluto was, just coming up as well. So in the current marketplace, well, first of all, we'll talk about the elephant in the room, which is, as of this recording, the virus, their cerveza. I call it their cerveza, their cerveza disease, cerveza flu. The cerveza flu is affecting a lot of people around the world, and I just did an episode this week about how the coronavirus is actually affecting our industry, and we've lost. I think in China they lost $2 billion in revenue worldwide, already $4 billion in revenue. And it's no stop in sight. Like literally China right now, which is, I think, is it the second or the first biggest market? I'm not sure now. I don't know if it overtook the US or not, but they shut down 70,000 screens. Like they shut down their box office, which is decimating a very fragile and honestly, in my opinion, vulnerable film industry, which I feel that the China market has been propping up. The losses that they have occurred from DVDs and all the other foreign sales and all these other things that were there before have been taken away over the years. And China was kind of like bubbling it up a little bit, but then all of a sudden it's gone and everyone's like, oh crap. So how do you see this affecting our marketplace moving forward in 2020?
Well, absolutely, the rug has been pulled out from underneath the industry. Not certainly just our industry, but every industry and worldwide. The consequence of what is occurring right now is going to probably impact us for the next decade. Mm-hmm. That's what I believe, and we will get past it. We do. We always do.
Yes.
We get through the thing. But it really is going to require a major readjust, almost potentially a complete paradigm shift in the way we do business. The good news prior to this event of the virus is that because of all of these emerging sort of marketplaces, content is now much more valuable, right? Mm-hmm. Because I remember back when I was first starting off, you're trying to knock down the door to get somebody to pay attention to you because you had a project that you wanted to bring in, and people would just slam the door on you and get out of here, kid, Those roles have reversed quite a bit now, and content is king, and there's so much space now that needs to be filled with content. So that puts the creative people in a better position in terms of that. But then the question is, now the throngs of possibilities, how do you penetrate that? Mm-hmm. How do you penetrate that? Because now you got a billion times more competition than you used to have. So even though there's more opportunity and access, it's still sort of a funnel. And, somebody's getting stuck in the, but there's only a few people coming through that from everybody that's pouring into it. So I think, honestly, more than ever, this business has always been a business of relationships, and you and I are a testament to that. Mm-hmm. And not just you and I, but all of the people that you and I have in common in our circle. Mm-hmm. That we all see each other at all the events in our little kind of clan, right?
Right.
Well, that's the core of the independent film world, at least here in LA. And I think that especially somebody new, they have to really focus on building those internal relationships and finding the good guys, right? Because there's a lot of not good guys out there. Being able to identify those people and stay with them and work hard to make sure that they nurture and maintain those relationships over a long period of time, because this is the long game. This whole industry is about playing the long game. So if anybody's in it for a quick anything, whether it's a quick buck or they want to get famous, quickly, or they want to win an Oscar in the first film. That's not the mindset. It just isn't. You and I see that every day. That can't be the mindset. There's nothing wrong with having that kind of ambition and dream, but you also have to have your feet in reality and grounded. And I think that, as long as people stay close to people like us who are in it for the right reasons and have all of the right intentions. And like you said earlier, I'm a straight shooter. I tell people things they don't want to hear every single day.
Yes.
And you know what? And I'm proud of that because I know that they're going, oh, harsh, But at the end of the day, I'm doing it because I haven't got time for BS. I just don't. I got 12 films in production, just came out of principal photography. I got a million things going on right now. So the last thing I have time for is to babysit for somebody, right? And to hold somebody's hand. Now, I am willing to take my time and work with somebody over the long haul, but they have to be doing the heavy lifting at the end of the day. They have to make their contribution, especially if it's their film. There's so many people that come to people like me and they have an expectation, which is already a problem. They have an expectation that they're going to be able to hand something over to me and that I'm going to do it for them or take it from there. And it's the complete opposite. I will help empower them to do it themselves, and give them the tools and the resources and the knowledge and the information and whatever it is that they need for that. But I don't work for them and they don't work for me. That's what a collaboration is, So as far as the global market is concerned, I really think it's kind of a wait and see. I think we got to kind of wait and see how this thing flushes out. With for example, South by Southwest being canceled was a major, major, major blow. We're talking about $365 million in revenue. The potential is just wiped. And I'm working with a couple of organizations that I'm affiliated with to try to help potentially screen some of these filmmakers' films that would have gone there here in LA, so that at least kind of give them a little bit of a leg up. Because I know that these filmmakers must be crushed.
I mean, can you imagine spending your whole, I got into South by, my film got into South, and then all of a sudden it's canceled because of a virus scare. I can't even imagine. I can't
either. It's got to be gut wrenching. And, it could be, for some people, it could be an insurmountable problem, something that they may never recover from because they might have all their eggs in that one basket, which there was another problem. Yeah. But so that's why I'm saying we're going to try to at least do something. I don't know yet. We got a couple of organizations that I belong to. I'm on the board of directors at New Filmmakers Los Angeles. Mm-hmm. We're talking about partnering with some other groups here in LA and combining our resources in terms of theaters and space, and being able to get some of these films shown, at least here in LA, for audiences, despite the fact that they're not going to be able to compete in the festival.
Yeah, and I know RB, our mutual friend RB Botto from Stage 32, he's trying to do something as well to help those filmmakers as well.
They'll be one of those partners that we'll be working with.
Yeah, it's devastating. It's devastating. Now I've been yelling from the top of the mountain now for a while, saying, hey guys, right now things are getting really tight as far as the mid-level and lower level distributors. They're getting more predatory. There's always good guys, but there's a lot of bad guys out there in that world. And we were in a fairly good economic time. And I go, wait until the fit hits the shan, and all of a sudden things start tightening. And we saw it in 2008. I mean, you go back to 2008, you start seeing companies start falling left and right because they were fragile in the first place. Do you see, obviously, as of this recording, the market has had one of the worst weeks, last 2 weeks since 2008. A lot of people are saying that this is the first signs of something going to happen. We're due. We're late. We're late for something to happen. Do you feel, I'd love to hear your opinion, do you feel that some of the studios And there's only a handful of big studios left, but do you think of the studios and also some of these larger distributors are vulnerable because they're fragile in the first place because they're not diversified? Like Disney, we're good. Disney's going to be fine. Warner's will probably be fine. Universal will probably be fine, but they're super diversified. Where some of the other studios aren't, and especially these distribution companies who are not diversified at all, and they're just making the money with distribution. If those channels start, like what we were just talking about, like China shuts down, and then all of a sudden the foreign market shuts down, all of a sudden all this flow ends. Do you feel that there's going to be a reckoning, if you will, in our industry?
I do. And I have to say this is a very unpopular position, but as bad as that is and is probably going to be, the industry really needs a purge, and this might be that opportunity. I believe this is the Phoenix rising, because what's going to emerge from that catastrophic event is going to be a new perspective and a new way of doing things. Because I've been saying for a long time, I kept predicting about 5 years ago, I started predicting that the overall model of the sales companies, as opposed to the actual distributors, right? The sort of middlemen between the film,
the middlemen and the middlemen and of the middlemen, right?
I mean, that's where all the breakdown is, right? I mean, you have all these filmmakers, myself included, who spend years of their lives and dedicate thousands, if not millions of dollars in getting investment and doing everything they're supposed to do. They do it all right. Not always. I mean, people make mistakes, but for those who do go down the path and actually produce a quality film that deserves to be seen in the world, and then they go into the distribution market and they get crushed.
He's decimated.
They get crushed. And as a result of that, it's a domino effect backwards now, because the sales companies, some of them are doing sales, recovering proceeds and not paying out. You know about that, right? And then there are others that are just in it for the upfront marketing fees. And once they collect their fees, they lose interest in the film and then move on to the next one, and then that one after that. So they're in the marketing fee collection business as opposed to the distribution of film business.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been saying for 5 years now, that's going to implode. At some point, it's going to come back and bite them, because instead of having the mindset of, wait a minute, if we take care of these people, these talented, seriously,
right?
If we
I agree with you.
These talented, young, talented, entrepreneurial filmmakers that really have their act together and have the resources and the wherewithal to go up there and figure out how to raise $2 million to make the movie in the first place, and then they make a great movie, right? Wouldn't it behoove us to build a long-term relationship with these people and make sure that those filmmakers are able to return those investments to their investors and make with profit, so that those investors will continue to keep investing in them and we can continue to prosper and grow? Unfortunately, in the vast majority of the cases, that's not the case, because the mindset, it just isn't.
I know.
And, like I said, it's a very unpopular position to be taking, but the mindset is more along the lines of, there'll be another one right behind you.
Correct.
There's a long line that's never going to end. And you know what? We're going to do what we're going to do. We're going to make this money, and good luck on your film and with your investors. And unfortunately, if that falls off the wayside, there's going to be 100 more filmmakers in that line trying to get that same deal that looks on the surface like a great opportunity, and then turns out not to be. So I've been saying for a very long time that will self implode. It can't sustain itself. It can't be sustainable. And to your point, unfortunately, I think this could be a sign that, those are the most likely of people that are going to probably be the ones to fall by the wayside.
Mm-hmm.
When when the dust settles and everybody kind of comes back out of the ether and from whatever's going to be occurring over the next year or two, I think there is going to be a whole new way of looking at this thing and finding. I mean, even now, some of the deals I'm working on, we're working on I have a couple of film funds that I'm building in, the name of the company, and I'm consulting on others, and I'm telling these people, that we can't go out and raise all these millions of dollars and then dump it hand it over to some third party that's going to take the lion's share and leave us hanging, especially now if we're the investors and it's our money. So we're looking at ways to be able to minimize that. One of those ways is to reduce that marketing fee down to only about $10,000.
Which is nothing in the grand scope of things. Yeah.
But imagine, taking what is traditionally at 50, 60, I've seen 85,000,
100, 150 to I've seen 200. Oh yeah.
Ridiculous. And it's just wrong. It's just wrong. Just imagine if that number was capped at like 15,000, so those are little things that, that we're trying to do internally here. And that's why I said, goes back to my point earlier about new filmmakers or even current filmmakers staying close to people like us who are fighting every day and working towards coming up with solutions for some of these things, so that if and when the bottom falls out of this thing, there'll be a small group of people who will be able to survive it and actually, exceed expectations from there.
I mean, in 2008, when did Netflix start? Like the streaming side of Netflix. It was around 2008, 2009, 2010, if I'm not mistaken, right? Yeah. That's when the beginning stages of streaming, which was horrible at the time, obviously. But that's when it started. And Netflix came out of the streaming side of Netflix came out of the 2008 thing. And look how that completely transformed our industry. And there every once in a while, there needs to be a purge. And I agree with you. I 100% agree with you. I 100% think there needs to be a wiping of the slate in many ways. If the companies are strong and they have good business models that can sustain hits, then
right and ethical,
correct,
then they'll survive.
Correct.
They'll survive. They have a better chance of surviving. And, it's interesting you bring up Netflix because I remember, in those days, me personally, my company, we made vast majority of our money back then on DVDs. Right.
What is this? What is the DVD? What
stay with these? Yeah, they have the thing. But anyway,
coasters. They look like coasters. Yeah, got it.
Yeah. That's what they are now. That's what we use them for now. But anyway, we, that was in the DVD days, right? When as a distributor or sales company, we had these really exorbitant hard costs, right? Because we're going to bring a film out to market and it's going to go to like Walmart and all these places, but mostly in those days to Blockbuster and all of those thousands and thousands of other chain,
Hollywood Video, West Coast Video, all those guys, yeah.
So there was the hard cost associated with that we had to cover, or the distributor had to cover, and it was expensive because now you had to print every one of those things, then you had to package it. Now you have the artwork, you have the plastic, and then you have the shipping. And what a lot of people don't realize is back then, if we got an order for 20,000 DVDs of our movie to Walmart, in 90 days, if Walmart wanted to, they could charge us back and send back 9,000 of those 10,000 orders. And we'd have already cashed the check. So we'd have to now be on the hook for all those DVDs that they rejected that never got sold. So that was a huge problem. So what was interesting about Netflix is, at the time, remember, they were delivering the DVD to your home. Mm-hmm. And so it was great because you still got that thing, that disc, but you didn't have to go anywhere to go get it. And from a distribution standpoint, from our standpoint, we were covering maybe the mailing costs of it because they came in the little sleeve, right? So there was a lot of that other cost was eliminated. But then when they switched over to streaming and the DVD just went out of style, that changed everything completely because now there is zero cost. There's zero hard cost there's nothing to charge back. And so now that profit margin significantly increased. And essentially, we're still there today with what's going on with VOD.
But it significantly increased, but the money that you can get for your film, it completely decreased dramatically. So the cost, so like perfect example though, before DVD would cost you $15, right?
Yeah.
And now a movie costs you free if it's on Prime.
Yeah.
Or if it's on part of your streaming service. So the devaluation has really hurt the filmmaker in many ways, correct?
100%. I mean, it was $5 or $6 just to rent it for the night.
And I know even before that, the VHS, don't forget, you used to get charged if you didn't rewind. Be kind, rewind.
You did. You used to get charged. Be kind, rewind. That was the...
Could you imagine? I worked in the video store. I remember I pissed people off dramatically. Like, sorry, I got to charge you an extra $1. You didn't rewind it.
Or if you were a day late. So I remember going out at 3:00 in the morning and sticking in that little slot they had that would drop into the trash basket. So it would be there in the morning so I wouldn't get charged for the next day.
I mean, we were barbarians. Let's just put it out that we were barbarians. We were
I was just talking to a filmmaker the other day about this and saying, look, for the people coming up, the young kids coming up, right? Today is like such a different conversation. I mean, when I started, somebody asked me about the origins of P&A. Like, why did they call it P&A? I said, because back then when I started, the P was prints. Mm-hmm. And the print was a 35 millimeter reel that was this gigantic, and you usually needed 2 for each film because the film didn't fit on one. And we used to have to deliver them and get into a van and bring them to the theater to bring them up into the screening room. At every theater, they had.
What was a print? I know, if I remember correctly, it would be like a $20,000 cost or $15,000 cost, right?
Very expensive
per print. And where now you could literally upload it and they could download it for free, essentially. Almost.
Yeah. Or now you could literally walk into a theater with a USB and here's my movie. You know what I mean? But I remember those days. I remember literally physically delivering those huge 35 millimeter prints, really heavy and on the thick film, and it was a very cool thing. But yeah, when you talk about that kind of money for every single theater, it was so hard to make money. It was, because that was just your delivery cost to get it in there.
That was the cost. That was you have to look at the ROI. I'm like, how many asses and seats could I get to recoup this cost? And then the theater was taking 50%. And there was this, I mean, like, so it took a lot. That's why you had to pump a lot of money into advertising and to make that money. But that's when when home video showed up, of course, the whole industry was scared to death. But then they figured out, wait a minute, we can make some money here. And all of a sudden it changed. But then it's been slowly, you've been seeing it from the days of 35 millimeter prints all the way now to zero cost, but also really hard to generate revenue coming in from those channels unless you're creative. It's a very interesting journey that we've gone upon. Now I wanted to ask you something, and I wanted you to clear up something for me, because there's a lot of we have this little group that I started on Facebook called Protect Yourself from Predatory Film Distributors and Aggregators, which started off as a distributor Facebook group, and now it's become like this hub of the latest distribution techniques, who's screwing who, asking questions about certain distributors or sales reps and things like that, and people just it's a wealth of information. I want you to clarify, and I'm not going to use the distributor's name, and when the second I give you the description, you probably will know who it is, but I'm not going to say it. But if a distributor is putting out 40 to 50 movies a month, how much attention is going to each release? And they might be a very, very grandiose distribution company, have, this perceived value for independent filmmakers. And they're like, hey, I'm with X company now. Look at that. I have arrived. But yet you'll get $0 ever from that situation in many cases. What's your opinion of that scenario? And there's a handful of those companies out there that they just pump them out, and they're just throwing stuff against the wall to see what sticks, essentially.
Well, that was what I was going to say. It really comes down to that, right? At the beginning, let's say they sign up 10 films, right? In a given period of time in the next 30 days. They sign up 10. So that means they're finding, these people that we've been talking about, filmmakers who have worked hard, who have presumably in most cases completed their film, sometimes not, but and they have to sign this agreement. Well, you and I have talked about this. Those agreements can be 15-year commitments. I mean, they tend to be 5, 7, or 10 years.
Oh no, I've seen them up to 25 now. They're getting so predatory. It's going up to 25.
So now, because they want to lock the filmmaker in, like literally forever, right? So that they can't go somewhere else. And the truth is, even if they don't do anything with the filmmaker can't take it and go someplace else with it. So they're essentially being held hostage. So now they sign these 10 agreements. And let's say, just to use that round number, let's say that every one of those agreements requires a $100,000 marketing fee. It's that people should understand comes from the sales, right? I mean, it's not an upfront. We don't have to write them a check for 100,000, but the first 100,000 in sales that's generated, we are agreeing that they're going to get to keep as their quote unquote marketing fee, right? And that marketing fee, when it's legit, is fine, because what it says to me as a filmmaker is, okay, there's 9 other people here I'm sharing the pot with. And so does that mean that when they go out and do the front and the back page ad of the Variety and the Hollywood Reporter throughout all of AFM for that entire sweep, that my poster is going to be on there, or it's going to be, or they're going to be looping my film on the screen? No, it doesn't mean that. What it means, but I'm paying the same as everybody else, right? So now in this scenario, this company, who shall remain nameless, is going to sell the shit out of that film for until they hit the $100,000 mark, right? Because that's their money. So now they have just brought in $1 million on 10 films, right? Off of the backs of the filmmaker and their investors. But then hit that plateau, and I've seen this happen to me, by the way. Once they hit the plateau, their commission goes from that 100% of revenue down to 20, because that's their commission. So now they're only, and if they do make a sale after that, that remaining 80% becomes my filmmaker, my first money in, right? But now they've lost interest and they kicked the thing to the curb. However, out of those 10 films, 2 of them might be performing like gangbusters. And the other ones are just kind of mediocre. But 1 or 2 of them might be just taking the lead without question and for sure hit. Those are the ones they're going to focus on. They're going to move the other 8 aside. They're going to take those films and they're going to really push until they can squeeze every dollar out of it. Even at 20% now, it's worth their while. And then next month, they're going to go find 10 more filmmakers. And by the way, while we're all trying to figure out where we're going to get the money to go to Cannes, those are sitting on a yacht popping my way. $100,000 marketing fee off of my movie that I can't afford to go see at the festival.
Now, I wanted to bring back something. That's why I love having you on the show, because we speak the same language. That scenario that you talked about, the print ad in Variety during AFM. Now, let's say on that print ad, they have 20 posters. Okay. And that ad cost $20,000, let's say, right? For that week on Variety. Is it fair to say, because I've seen this happen, is it fair to say that they're not going to cut up that 20,000 or prorate that 20,000 per 20? They're not going to charge each filmmaker $1,000. In the accounting, they'll charge each filmmaker $20,000 for an ad. Does that make sense?
Well, it does. I've never seen that. It wouldn't surprise me. Yeah,
isn't that Hollywood accounting?
Well, yeah, but that's where it all goes wrong, and that's what I'm trying
Correct.
to say. Look, Alex, I have gone to the extent, because first of all, your listeners should understand that in these agreements, the filmmaker has the right to an audit, right? Once a year at their own expense. So if you wanted to, you could go to this company after the deal's done and everything's happening, and you have the right to go in and audit the books and take a look at what the scenario actually is, how much is being spent on what and whatnot. And so if that were the case, you would see what you just described. That said, you wouldn't know that it wasn't $20,000 because in your mind, you're thinking, I was on the cover of Variety or I was on the back cover of Variety. And it might make sense to a first or second time filmmaker that it would cost 20 grand to do that. When you're right, they just made $150,000, $200,000 off of a $20,000 ad. The problem is, number one, nobody ever goes in for that audit. Nobody ever follows up on it. They forget that it.
If it's even on the contract.
In there, right. But assuming that it is, number one, you, God, I hate to say this, but it's only because I've actually experienced this that I'm speaking this way. But number one, it's incumbent upon the filmmaker to initiate that process. Number two, it's like the IRS audit. It's like, oh, sorry, got to go to lunch. Can you come back next Tuesday? Right. So actually trying to find the time to get them to commit to letting you come in there to audit their books on your movie. Good luck. Forget about it. Right. And then even if that happens, what guarantee do we have? And I'm not accusing anybody of anything.
Oh, you mean that there's a second set of books, sir? No, stop it. You mean like mob style? Like mob style?
Like, here you go. Take a good look. Yeah, it's just, and this is why I've been saying for all these years that it's going to
implode,
bite them all. It's going to come back. This is not sustainable. It can't be. It can't be. It's no longer acceptable. The other thing I think that's playing into this, when I first started, independent filmmakers were a joke. We were considered a joke. We weren't ever taken seriously. And it was so easy for them to toss us aside. Like we were just a bunch of freaks, until we started winning Best Picture every year.
Right. This year, even this year, Jesus, a foreign film for the first time.
Including this year. So for like 7 out of the last 8 years, it's been an independent film. Right, you're not seeing these big tentpole blockbuster films winning Best Picture. We're making those movies. We are making those movies. We might be distributing them through the studio system for exposure purpose, but we're the ones who are making those movies. We, the independent film community. So it became clear at some point that we, as a community, are now a force to be reckoned with, and you can't treat us the way you used to treat us back in 15 years ago when I got started. So but the irony is that although a lot of the components of the industry have shifted and improved for us as independent filmmakers as we progressed, that one thing is just never changed. That distribution model of ripping off filmmakers doesn't change. And that's the reason why people are hungry for a distributor. Right? To try to find an alternative to that. They're trying to find a way to self-distribute their films. And that's why people are, doing it on Facebook and on whatever they can. They're looking for any means other than the traditional because that gap is starting to close.
Right. And the thing is, unfortunately, if you have a $500,000 or $1 million film, self-distribution can happen, but man, you've got to be hitting it at every cylinder has to hit perfectly. You got to know exactly what you're doing. So that's why I keep saying, if you're going to go down that road, keep the cost as low as humanly possible so you can get the ROI, so you can get into the black faster. A $15,000 indie, which could be excellent, is going to have a lot better chance than a $150,000 indie to generate money back. Because both you and I know how difficult it is to get eyeballs, to get people to look at your films. It's just an insane system. It's like going back in the olden days, like how many, I call it, and I've said this publicly and I many times, I feel what happened in the Me Too movement, it was something that was a standard way of doing business in Hollywood, like the casting couch. The casting couch was a thing from back in Chaplin's day. Everybody, oh yeah, I got to go on the casting couch to get that part. all of that, right? And Me Too kind of exploded that situation, and all for the better, of course. I feel that what's happened to filmmakers over the course of that same time, and even more so now, is a financial kind of raping of, because you put up $300,000-$500,000 of your own money or your mom's parents or whatever, or investors' money, and they're literally just stealing it from you, stealing it legally. It's insane. So I think you're right. There is an absolute reckoning coming, and I think that the system can't keep going. I think it was easier in the 80s, in the 90s, and even in the early 2000s because the volume was a lot different. The distribution outlets were a lot different. But now, because of so much, this system can't hold. That's why it stayed like that for 80, 90 years.
Yeah.
Because it was pretty much locked. But now it's the Wild Wild West, and they can't handle it anymore. They don't even know how to deal with it. So they're trying to they're trying to use the horse and buggy on a Ferrari, no pun intended, and it doesn't, the whip on like trying to make the car go with the horse and whip. I'm like, no, dude, that's a car. It has an engine. It runs on gas. It's not a horse. Do you agree?
100%, 100%. And the other aspect of this that's already rearing its ugly head is on the investor side. With what happened in the stock market just in the last week or two, when they say investors, when they're talking about the stock market, it's in every other aspect. And so we essentially are experiencing right now a freeze on investment. The last thing somebody wants to do is talk to me right now at this moment about putting up $1 million on a movie.
Right.
Well,
it's getting tougher for you.
Well, yeah, for everybody, because they're just trying to find a way to protect the money that they have, and, in some ways it may be a good way to divert the funds and put it into something, that has the potential to really grow. But this goes back to what we're talking about the whole time, is that one of the issues we have, even with the investors that I deal with on a regular basis, is that these guys hear these horror stories. They know what's going on. And so what happens is I now find myself in a position where an investor might say to me, listen, I'll put up the money for this movie, but I want a distribution deal for up front. I want you to sign a distribution deal. And my response to that usually is, that's a bad idea. Because it is. Because I understand, Mr. Investor, that this would give you a sense of security because you got this person's brand name attached to your film as a distributor. Mm-hmm. But let me tell you, as an experienced filmmaker with 24 whatever films under my belt, I can tell you emphatically that we are going to be better off if you just put the money up and trust us to do our job and make a really great film. And then let us go out there and compete in the marketplace. Let us go to the film festivals. Let us let's get us a bunch of distributors vying for our project. Let's not sell our soul to the devil today, just so that you can feel a little bit more secure. Because in my opinion, you have a way better chance of not only making your money back, but making a much higher upside if you let us go make a great movie and go out and compete with it, than if you lock us into some 7 or 15-year deal with some schmuck who's never going to move, and we're going to end up making this great movie and we can't even do anything with it because we already sold our soul to the devil. Over what? Over your lack of security?
Your insecurity. Absolutely.
It doesn't make any sense. Well, that's a conversation I often have to have with investors, and it's a tough conversation to have because you're literally saying to them, let me take the security away from you and trust me to do what we do. And in the long run, we believe that we'll be better for it.
But it's just a perceived security. It's not really security. It's not like you're signing with Disney or Warner's and they're giving you a massive upfront fee that's covering your budget. That's not the case here. Right. You're basically just doing it. You're just signing it up like anybody else. And then maybe if you're lucky, they give you a minimum guarantee of a quarter of the budget. And that's like amazing if they did that. But that's not happening.
It's not happening.
I was talking to a filmmaker. I was talking to a filmmaker at AFM, and they were telling me like, hey, I made a movie for $150,000. They were from I think South Africa or Australia as well, one of those two. And it's like, we made $150,000 film. I'm like, and we got an MG. I'm like, oh, great. What, who did you sign with? And they told me the company. I'm like, okay, that's fine. Because when I heard MG, I'm like, who gets an MG in today's world? Like, for an independent film, how much did they do? And he's like, oh, they gave us 30. And I go, 30? Okay. Is that for a certain territory? He goes, no, we gave them worldwide. And I'm like, so you got 30,000 for a product that you paid 150,000 for, and you locked up your film for 7 years? And he was just so happy that he got 30,000. I go, what other business in the world do you spend 150,000 to make 30,000? Like, that doesn't, it makes no sense. But for filmmakers, we're like, happy. Right. And he's like, no, but my film's going to get out there. I'm like, dude. And I mean, I think he walked away a little deflated after he spoke to me. And I'm like, do you realize what you just did? Like, if you're selling off one right or one territory for 30,000 and you still can keep going, great. But you sold your soul for 30 grand.
Yeah.
You're never going to make your money back. It's insane.
It never. And people who have been in this business as long as you and I have all know that an MG is the kiss of death, because you'll never see another penny. You'll get the amount,
maybe,
but even
I've heard that.
But even then, I always tell people, you got to look underneath all of this stuff, right? I have a lot of people send me contracts and agreements to take a look at, right? Because you got to really know how to read these things. And I had an MG once. It was for $400,000. This is a long time ago when they did that. It was for $400,000, right? But what I didn't know was they put in $100,000 of that MG was for producers. Now, I was one and my partner was one, so that was 25 and 25. But then they put in 25,000 each for the two of them, which was the two partners at the company, right?
Uh-huh.
So they're paying themselves 50,000 out of the 400,000. So in real life,
350
out of the 400, it was really 300, right? And then the payout was something like $50,000. The first money didn't even hit until a year. So there was nothing up front. And then it was like in 18 months, you get another 50 and and then you get 100. And the whole thing was the most embarrassing, bizarre thing I ever saw. And so on one hand, I was excited because I'm getting this $400,000 MG that I can get to, that I could maybe go monetize, right? Or I could do a lot of things. I could brag about it. But then when I looked at the thing, and it's interesting because that deal severed that 10-year relationship. Because what I said to them is, are you kidding me? The fact that you would even suggest to put this in front of me means that you think I'm a chump. And we've had this relationship for 10 years. And this is such a slap in the face. And you know what their response was? Well, it was just a starting point. We're open to negotiating. And I'm like, well, go negotiate with somebody else. And I literally just tore up the document and I walked away. It was horrible. And we haven't spoken since. It's sad.
Isn't it amazing? Like I met another filmmaker at AFM this year, and she was offered, this is the deal that she was offered. She was offered a 20-year deal for her thriller from Africa. It was an African thriller. And it was a 20-year deal with a $50,000 $50,000 marketing cap. But wait, which doesn't sound, with the 20 years is horrible. But the 50,000, you're like, it's okay, fine, I kind of get it. No. It was 50,000 a year. A year.
Oh, for 20 years.
For 20 years. So it would have been $2 million in marketing and expenses over the course of the contract. And she, as inexperienced as she's like, this sounds a bit dodgy. So she went back to this guy. And by the way, this was a sales rep. This wasn't even a distributor. It was a sales rep. And he comes like this. I don't think he's like, okay. Listen, why don't we just do 10 years and a $50,000 total? And she's like, so basically you were trying to screw me. And he's like, well, yeah, it was just a starting. It was a starting point. So they throw out these ridiculous deals. And by the way, that company that we were talking about earlier, the one that does 50, 40 or 50, they're infamous for this. I've seen the agreements. They'll toss out 20-year all the time. That's their standard practice now, is 20 years with 100,000. And then I had a filmmaker go back to them and go, look, this sounds a bit, all right, 7. It's like, it's like you're going to go buy a house and they're like, we need $1 million cash. I'm like, no, it seems a bit much. Okay, 250. Like, like what are you doing?
Right. Or you're in the car dealership and the guy says, let me go talk to my manager.
Oh, the manager. And they go drink a cup of coffee and go, I think I got another live one.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So
Dude, it's a racket.
It's a racket. And now I wanted to ask you, because I know your budget, what are your budget ranges in the films that you work with generally? About $1 million to $3 million, right?
Yeah, 1 to 3.
Okay. So at that range,
that's spot.
I'm sorry, say that again.
That's the sweet spot.
Okay.
1 to 3.
So you're outside the normal independent filmmaker, because normal independent filmmakers in the current economic environment and the current environment and marketplace in general are $500,000 and below. Once you start getting above $500,000, you really need to know what you're doing. As a general statement. So the 1 to 3, from my experience at least, for 1 to 3, there's a smaller group of people playing in that sandbox. So I'm curious how you are generating your revenue and how are you getting returns for your investors, because obviously you've been doing this for a few years, so obviously you're making some sort of money. So what are the revenue streams? And you don't have to give me numbers, but just curious, like, okay, I do this, I go here, I do that. How do you structure a deal that makes sense?
Well, I actually just in 2020 made a decision to get out of the under $1 million world, and because I've been doing it, I have a couple of these movies that are like, 500, 750, whatever, 600. But here's the reality today, and why I no longer do that, and why I stick to the 1 to 3. Part of it is because of the distribution world, and because the demands now are unreasonable. When you talk about what level actor these distribution people and sales companies require for you to have in your film in order to, even have a slight interest, or for that matter, for the investors. Because, we run sales projections on every deal before we even think about going out to investors. And that's one of the biggest problems that a lot of filmmakers have, is they're out running around trying to cast people, and they've never even run any numbers on the people that they're going out to get. So don't even get me started on that. But because that's a huge pet peeve of mine, because it doesn't work and it makes no sense. But aside from that, when you're in that range, one of the things, like I have finance partners that will monetize tax credits and pre-sale contracts, right? Because those are hard assets. They're collateral. So there's very little risk involved. I mean, that doesn't mean that the state of Utah might go broke or their film thing might run out of money. I mean, that's all still a possibility. But for all intents and purposes, if you have a certificate from a state, you're going to be able to cash in on that, and that money's coming in. So an investor feels safe doing that, because they're not the equity, they're not the risk taker. And then what we do is we package that with, let's say there's a pre-sale for $50,000 and I have a tax credit of $200. I can take that whole $250 and I can, through my lending sources, I can lend to the filmmaker that $250,000, put it in their bank account next to their equity, and now they have most of the money, if not all of it, to go ahead and make the film. So that's kind of how that works. The problem is that even though the film itself, the budget of the film, let's say it's $375, might qualify in the state of Massachusetts for a 25% tax credit, it doesn't qualify for tax credit funding because it's too low. It's too small of an amount. Mm-hmm. And these guys are going to go do 200, do these, $80,000, $90,000, $100,000 loans. It's mm-hmm. not worth it for them. So what happens is the criteria now has changed. So now the loan amount has to be $300,000. So if the loan amount is $300,000, that means your budget, it has to be $1 million. And now you qualify to us to be able to monetize that tax credit. And then if you can add a minimum guarantee, or a pre-sale to that, we can bundle it and lend out the money. So that's one of the reasons. And the other reason is, in order to get a pre-sale or a potential MG, based on what? I mean, if you're making a movie for $350,000, who are you going to get in that movie that's going to justify or warrant any kind of an MG? You're not. Nobody. So it just doesn't make the grade. When you get into that 1.5, 2.5 range, you find yourself in a little bit better position where A, you do qualify for tax credit funding, and B, you might have a shot at being able to get a pre-sale or something in addition to that you can bundle up and put in. And then, so that's the goal, is to try to package it that way. What I've been working on for the last year and a half, and I continue to, and I hope to have done by the end of this year, and I think you know this because I think we've talked about it privately, but I'm working on putting together these film funds, 2 of them, that will alleviate all of these problems by being able to advance 100% of the budget up front for these films. So if somebody brings in a project that gets approved through our fund and it's $2 million, we're just going to write the check and go make the movie and not deal with this nonsense and jump through hoops and figuring out tax credits. Now, we'll still want to go to a tax credit environment and recoup that 25 or 30% for ourselves as the fund, as part of our all recoupment. But we're not required to, which means that if I want to shoot in a state or wherever that doesn't happen to have a tax credit, I'm not prohibited anymore by the numbers. I can go, I got the whole money. The other benefit to that is you have the proof of funds up front for 100% of your budget. So when you are making those offers to those actors, you're now negotiating from a position of strength by saying, here's my proof of funds. I have $2.5 million in the account, and here's my offer for $250. And even then, I'm going to be in a position to be able to write a check for 10% of that, $25,000, as a down payment towards that offer. So it elevates me and puts me in a place where I can start making stronger offers to better, bigger names, which will yield, better returns. And so that's why I brought everything up into that space. And it's a great space to be in terms of, for me, at least in my resources. Once you break 5 million and you go up into the 8 or 10, it comes a little bit of a black hole. And then from 10 million up, it's another whole ball game,
Now, you spoke about pre-sales, and I know that back in the day, pre-sales was a way to finance your whole film, honestly. There was, you could literally go to all the markets, pre-sell all your movie, and you had your budget, essentially. How is it in today's world? And I can only imagine what it's going to be like in the next 4 or 5 months, but or the rest of this year for that matter. But historically, within let's say the last year, where are you getting these pre-sales? Are they foreign pre-sales? Are they like are you carving out rights?
Yeah. It's individual territories,
and that's relationship that you just have.
Yes. Yes, it's individual territories. I mean, you can go to a sales company and have them do it, but then, like we just said, you're locked in, right? So, but there are lots of people, when you've been around as long as I have, that you can pick up the phone and say, hey, Latin America, I need a sale. Here's my film. Can you get me something in Latin America? Yeah, I can get you $125K. All right, I'll take it, because you're right. In the old days, you could go theoretically and just make your whole movie by selling off your pre-sales. But at the same time, you really don't want to sell off your pre-sales because it limits your ability to earn revenue, right? Because once you make that sale, right, it's gone. So now they can go exploit that film in that territory, but you get nothing out of that because you cashed out. So you want to be strategic about, where you sell those territories. So I'll get projects a lot of times where they're looking for funding, but they'll say, okay, but 5 territories are already spoken for. And to me, that's a negative on my side because that's 5 less territories I can work with revenue wise. But on the other side, it's a very good thing because that indicates to me, well, if 5 territories have already purchased this thing, it must be good.
So it obviously has Eric Roberts and Michael Madsen in it, obviously. So
both. They have to be both together. But
That's an inside joke, guys. Everybody, Eric Roberts did how many movies last year? 35? 35 movies, I think.
I haven't done one with Eric, but I've done one with Michael. So it's another story for another day.
That's another story. No, it was funny. I joke about that because when I was doing post, there was a year I did 3 Eric Robert movies. In 1 year, I did all the posts on 3 Eric Robert movies, and I was like, and my poor producer who spent like a lot of money to get Eric Roberts in his movie that was the anchor. He would go to distribution companies like, no, we're good. We've got 3 of Eric Roberts movies this year. We don't need another one. He diluted the market.
Well, it's true. That's exactly what it is. It's a saturation. They get to a saturation point. And that did happen with Michael. But Michael's fine. He still makes his money.
Oh, no, he's good. Yeah, he does a Quentin Tarantino movie every few years, and that brings him back up.
Yeah, they're all going to be fine. They're all going to be fine. But it's true. There is a saturation point. And then the other thing I like to tell people, too, because a lot of people don't understand this, and I think it's really important to understand. When people are pitching me these actors, first of all, I have this thing called a parenthesis rule, the parenthesis rule. Mm-hmm. All right. Now, remember, I'm talking about international, so I'm not talking about domestic, right? Like the movie I did, Guns, Girls, and Gambling, we had Christian Slater and Gary Oldman, right? So Christian Slater is a great domestic play. He's a great name in the United States and Canada, North America. But Gary Oldman is an international value name. Mm-hmm. Christian is not an international value name. So in a perfect world, you want both. You want an actor that's going to pull your domestic audience, and then you want an actor that's going to give the buyer in Germany and UK and China a reason to want to buy your rights, right? Because Gary Oldman's things is on the cover, right? So that's the kind of balancing act. But so the parenthesis rule is when people say to me, and it happens literally every single day of my life, they're pitching me something and they go, oh yeah, we got, so-and-so from such and such a movie or from this TV show. She's on the CW, right?
She's really hot right now. She's really hot.
Yeah. Okay, that's what I'm getting at, right? So that may be well and true. But first of all, the parenthesis test means if you can walk out the middle of the street and just pull a random person and give them that person's name and have them know who they are, then they count.
It's great.
If they can't, they don't count. So if I pull somebody up the street and I go, Cameron Diaz, they go, yeah, I love her. Right?
Nicolas Cage. Yes, I get it.
Love him. Yeah, got it. But then you go, Alex Ferrari, they're like, who?
First of all, I'm insulted, sir. Secondly, I am huge in Zimbabwe. I'm just saying I'm huge. I can't walk the streets in Zimbabwe.
That's like me in Japan. Say, I'm so huge in Japan. But the thing I want to say about the point you made is
right.
The up and comers, right? Mm-hmm. It may be really true that they literally are on that skyrocketing trajectory. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. But even if they're at close to the top of that, it takes about 3 years for that to translate into value on the open market. It takes 3 years. Mm-hmm. So somebody could come out in this big, huge movie that's a blockbuster and everybody's crazy over them. And now they're getting parts from every single direction and they're in every movie that you go to see. But that doesn't give them that level of value in the international market yet. They have to earn that because, a lot of these people rise and fall.
Oh,
right.
Oh, and in today's world.
They do. They catapult up to a certain level and then they just drop up. You never hear from them again.
Right.
So that's not necessarily an investment. You're looking for people who are going to be able to sustain that well beyond their rise period, and maintain that name and face recognition. Those are the people that have value. And for that reason, it changes every year. And that's the reason why I tell these filmmakers through our program, through the development program, we spend a lot of time researching and figuring out, making lists of actors that make sense for a given movie, narrow that list down to 5 names for each with a casting director, and then bring that into the sales team, including the director, by the way. So it could be the male lead, the female lead, and then the director. We take all of that and sort of crunch the numbers with sales to figure out what kind of projections we can anticipate based on these people, and what combination of those people gives us the best numbers in the world. And then once I'm armed with those numbers, and my rule of thumb is they give you 3 columns, right? The low, the middle, and the high. My rule of thumb is your low should be 2 times budget, 1.5 to 2 times budget. So if you're making a movie like I do at $2 million, you want your low estimate to be at least 3, between 3 and 4. And you need the name power in order to get to that number. But now you have a strategy, because if and when you do that, now you got a plan. These are the 5 actors. I got to go get one of these 5 actors. And if I don't, my investor can take his money back, because I'm going to take the investment contingent upon me being able to deliver on my end.
Right.
But I have to know what I'm delivering. So instead of just running around talking about, oh, I want so-and-so to be in my movie, there's a science to this. It's not perfect, but at least it's a strategy that helps us determine. I tell filmmakers all the time, if you haven't done this work, if you don't know exactly what your budget is, and you don't know what your sales projections are, and you don't have a strategy around your cast, you do not have the right to be talking to investors. You shouldn't be doing it. You're going out too soon. You're out there having conversations with people with money that you shouldn't be happening, because you're not prepared to have those conversations, because you don't have the information that's required for them to be able to make a rational, sound decision on whether or not you're a good investment or not.
Now, Franco,
it's your job.
You sound very logical here. You sound like you're making sense. But I'm gonna play the devil's advocate here. I'm an artist, man. I'm an artist. I just want to make a film with this actor, and I can't do it for less than $3 million, because my vision depends on $3 million. And I'm not going to worry about how to make money with the film. That's your job, not mine as a director and as the creative muse of this project. I don't want to get locked down with, what actors are worth and what they're not worth internationally. I want the best person for the part. Now, but I also want a best person for the part, in my opinion, who, by the way, I've never made a movie before. So I've never made a feature, but I've seen it on TV, so it doesn't look that difficult. So I've seen a lot of behind the scenes. I could do what they do. I mean, it's not that hard. If there's green screen, it's fine. So look, I'm making a jest of this, but this conversation, I'm sure you've had multiple times. I've been on the other side of this conversation earlier in my career when I would do something. I was that naive. Let's not say stupid. That naive, that egocentric. Yeah. And what I always tell people is like, look, if you want to play in a very large sandbox, there are different rules in a larger sandbox. So like my last movie that I did for a few $1,000, which you saw, that sandbox, I have all. I know you said you loved it. Thank you so much. I know you loved it. That sandbox, I can do whatever I want, cast whoever I want, tell whatever story I want, not worry about international sales, not worry about my cast. I could cast whoever I want, because the cost is very low. It's kind of like building a shed in the back or a $10 million mansion. You could do whatever you want with that shed that's going to cost you $5,000 of your own money. But when you're asking for $10 million to build that mansion, that, by the way, you've never built a mansion before, it doesn't work. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, well, that's exactly, and you're right. I hear that all the time. And, you're right. It is a vast difference, because the question becomes at that point, well, what's at stake? In your scenario with your $3,000, $5,000 film, that's what's at stake, right? That's your world. That's you want to create that world. And as a filmmaker, I encourage people to do that, because that's where you learn how to do all of this, right? Because the process that you went through for a $5,000 film is no different than the $5 million film. You're still going to go through the same process. The difference is that the stakes are higher, right? And now in your scenario A, you're the only person that you're accountable to, or the few people that might have helped you financially to get to that thing. In my world, you got investors who are going to be breathing down your back, and they're not only going to be breathing down your back, but if you mess up on a $2,000 or $3,000 film, you can recover from that and go make another $5,000 film and then a $10,000 film. Sure. If you mess up, especially if it's your first one, if you mess up on a $2.5 million film and you can only recover $250,000,
you're not making that mansion, friend.
And you're in deep, deep trouble. Number one, and number two, now what inevitably happens is that same filmmaker gets a bright vision for the next film. And they want to go embark on getting number two done, right? And they're so buried in number one that they're $1.5 million behind, right? And then on top of it, you got the whole distribution thing that happens on top of that. So where I'm coming from is this is what I tell people. There's sort of two paths you can take when it comes to this business. There's what I call the pitch and sell, and then there's the DIY, right? The pitch and sell, I know writers that are great writers that just want to write. They just want to write. And they write really well. And they're out asking people like me, hey, do you want to buy my script? Right? No, I don't want to buy the script. Because I don't buy scripts. I make movies. Like there's a difference, right? So but there are people who do buy scripts. And you can make a living, and I know lots of folks who do, and probably do too, that make a living writing scripts for other people to go knock yourself out. And once that check clears, they're good. They don't care what happens to that project. And because they got 10 more behind it or 20 more behind it. So that's one avenue. The world that I live in is to produce your own material and maintain both the creative control over it, because you'll lose that in a heartbeat. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, maintain the creative control and maintain the financial control so that you're the rights holder. It's your story. You wrote it. You own it. And it stays that way throughout the whole thing. So you can reap the benefits. If you go down that route, there's a whole nother set of responsibility. It's like going from the minor leagues into the Olympics. The training is different, Yeah. And you have to get it. The training is different. You can't mix one up with the other. So if you're going to go play softball with your friends, it's one thing. If you're going to go try out for the Olympic, team, that's a whole different way of operating. So, and that's what happens is a lot of people get stuck in the transition. I got a lot of filmmakers that come to me and they've made a couple of short films, right? And when they paid $2,000 and they did a great job and they're winning awards, and it's great. I love that because I think that shows a lot of character, right? Mm-hmm. At the same time, I know people who come to me and they've made 12 shorts, and I'm like, stop making shorts. Like we get it. Like with all of the time and energy and money that you're putting into all of these shorts, you can be making a feature that you could sell. But my point is that there's a mentality around that experience, especially if it's their first time on set and all their friends are there and they get to boss everybody around and they get to be the big boss and the big cheese, and they sit in their director chair and they're just, doing.
They're playing the part. Right? They're playing the part.
Experience that they walk away from. But then they think that when they go to a movie for $2 million, it's going to be the same thing except bigger, and it's not the same thing. Same thing. And no, you can't bring your buddy out of film school to be your DP. You know what I mean? No. Or to do your budget. No. At that level, when you're talking about millions of dollars, you have to build a team. And what I tell these guys is when you made that short film, you probably didn't do it alone, right? You brought in a DP and a first AD and a script supervisor or whatever you had to bring in. You needed to build an infrastructure around you so that you could direct that film. Well, in my world, I do the exact same thing, except we do it in the business. And I surround people with the people that they need to build their business team so that they can go out and properly, the key word, raise the funding to be able to make the movie that they envision. And then we go out and put together the team of professionals that are going to support and surround them so that they can make the best movie possible that we all have the same stake in, because we want to see it get distributed and sold and return investment on. Because if you can do that, especially on their first film, if that should be the goal. The goal shouldn't be to win the Oscar on the first round, although that would be lovely. The goal shouldn't be to
Sundance,
box office.
Sundance, Cannes, South by Southwest. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I have people actually say to me, "Well, I'm gonna bring it to Sundance." Like they're gonna walk in, and Sundance is gonna go, "Come on in here. There's a screen open right there. Why don't you go shoot it right up there? Hold on, let me go get a couple of people to watch this thing with you."
Would you like some popcorn,
Like,
sir? Would you like some popcorn? We can massage your feet while you watch it, sir. Is that? Yeah, that's not the way it works. You're trying to basically you're just mitigating risk. You're mitigating risk because the higher the number goes of the budget, the more risk you have at that thing. And the studios do it all the time. That's why now it's just reboot after IP after established properties because they don't at $200 million you can't risk. It's very difficult. Like Avatar was the last time I saw a studio take a $500 million risk on a new IP, but it was James Cameron and he could do it. That's why it's always reboot, IP, because they can't risk that much.
and even then, I don't know when this happened, but I remember it's probably been a good 10 years now. There was a time when there was never any such thing as seeing two studios on one film, right? Everybody was competing with each other.
Mm-hmm.
See the Paramount or Universal or WB. Now you see them working together, but for that reason. Because if they're gonna work on $150 million project, why don't we put up $75 million each and share the risk and utilize our resources instead of fighting with each other? Why don't we join each other and make this thing a huge hit? And that's what's been happening now is that they've started to smarten up and team up.
And then there's Cats.
And there's Cats. Which I haven't seen, so I can't really say.
I can't wait to see it. I'm dying to see it.
Yeah.
But if
we'll go together,
I mean, I'm dying to see it only if it's inside, sir, because obviously we're not allowed out anymore. But no, but and I keep telling this to people. I've never seen it. I don't want to bash anybody, but I mean, it's when you have a once in a generation. It's a once in a generation situation where you have 100 million plus studio film that fails at such a Goliath of a failure. It doesn't happen. And on paper, that movie had everything going for it. It was an IP that was world renowned, the best talent, multiple Oscar winners, and the behind the scenes is the director, the writers, the actors, the visual effect. I mean, it had everything going for it. And it obviously was a colossal failure in many, many ways.
It was like the opposite of the producers. The movie, that was the opposite of that. But it's interesting because it brings up a really important point that I've talked about for 10 years now. I have a phrase that I use. I say to filmmakers, when they come to me, they have a lot of expectations, right? And that's understandable. But there's a reality to all of this too. So, because it costs a lot of money to do this. Nobody's working for free here. This is a business. So there's a lot of money at stake. There's a lot of heart at stake. There's a lot of stress. But at the end of the day, for people who are willing to go through the process and develop a film properly and figure all of that stuff out, and in my world, I'll help them. I'll take them by the hand and carry them through that process, which is an arduous process, especially if they've never done it before. But I say to them, you can do everything right. Like literally everything right. From day one, you can write a beautiful script, like top shelf script. You can go out there and shoot a gorgeous film, beautiful. You can go into the editing room and, because you could lose everything right there. The whole thing could fall apart. But assuming that you don't, and then you come out on the other side and you've got a beautiful piece of art to be able to display. What I tell people is no matter what we do together as a team or whoever's involved, at the end of the day, there's only one thing that's going to ultimately determine the success or the failure of your film. And it's the film.
No, stop it. It's everything else but the story.
It's not the writer. It's not the acting. It's not the sound. It's not the lighting. It's not the music. It's all of it. And that Cats is such a perfect example, because anyone in their right mind who might have been given an opportunity to invest in that movie would have been crazy not to do it.
Of course. Like I said, on paper, It's perfect.
Yeah. But that's why it's such a great example of what I'm saying is because it was perfect until it wasn't. And now people are, hurting from that. I mean, experience.
But the thing was, so if we analyze Cats for a second, let's beat up Cats a little bit more, because God knows it hasn't been beat up enough. There was a risk involved that no one took into consideration, and this is the best minds in Hollywood, Oscar-winning minds, as well as the best. I mean, Universal is no slouch as far as making movies is concerned. Everyone underestimated the risk of the CG. Everyone assumed that the visual effects were going to be solid because they had a great company doing it, but no one took in consideration pushing the visual effects artists too fast, unrealistic deadlines, constant revisions. No one took all of that into consideration, because that director, who is a fantastic filmmaker, from my experience, he's not a CG guy. He's not James Cameron. He's not David Fincher. He's not someone who understands that world and understands timelines and stuff. He was, he did The King's Speech and, more, those kind of films. So I think no one took that in consideration, and it just failed, because I didn't talk to the actors, but I saw the actors afterwards. They're just like, we were on a set in green screen. Like, we had no idea we were going to look like that. Like, we were good. I worked 10 days. I had a ball. It was fantastic. But no one ever did the test to go, hey, maybe these guys look creepy. I've said this the best review ever of Cats, and I'm going to say it again because I've said it on the show before, but I can't stop saying it. The Cats is the worst thing to happen to cats since dogs.
Oh my God. That's funny. That's good. That's good, and it's probably true.
Oh, all right. So let's get off of Cats for a second. Now I wanted to ask you a couple more questions, if you have some time, sir, because I know you're a busy man.
Yeah, no, I'm good.
We've talked a little bit off air about this, and I just did a podcast recently about this, where there is not only is there a lot of predatory people and scam artists in the distribution space and in the sales rep space, but there is, oddly enough, in the film financing space, which is a space you live in. And now with the episode, and I'll put it in the show notes, which was about the minimum guarantee scam, where now you go, to someone who's pretending to be someone like yourself and says, hey, we will package the movie for you. We will get an MG, a minimum guarantee from X of these distributors who we have all the connections for. All we need is 40 to 60,000, maybe 80,000 up front to do this work for you. And I just got off the phone with a poor filmmaker who it was like $1 million+ dollar film, and he got screwed for $40,000 or $50,000 out of one of these companies. And I wanted to just throw it at you to say, what can filmmakers look out for? Because, I mean, obviously you and I would smell that coming from a mile away, but a lot of young filmmakers, or even people who are just not familiar of this side of the business, what can they look out for? What are some signs that we can kind of protect yourself from these predators?
Well, because I've been doing this for 20+ years, I have to say I've become very jaded around all of that, because I am at the point where I literally don't believe a word anybody says to me.
Agreed. Until the check clears. Until the check clears.
That's the baseline. The baseline is when they say to me, I'm working on this film and it's $1 million budget and I have 300,000. I'm thinking, no, you don't. So let's start there. Prove to me that you have the 300,000. Yeah, and even then they scam you, because I was telling somebody the other day that I had a guy that needed $750,000, and we were looking for proof of funds. And what he did was he's delivered me a redacted like a Charles Schwab type of investment account certificate.
Sure,
and it was real. It was real. And it had the name in the, social security number and all that redacted, so you couldn't see that. But I could see the balance. It was something like $6 million in there. Mm-hmm. And this was a long time ago. This was years ago. And he said, see, this is my guy. He's got $6 million, so 750 won't be a problem. So I went with it. I went running around town telling everybody I had $750,000 in the movie. Only come to find out that although the proof of fund paperwork was legit, there was just a friend of his that did him a favor and gave him a piece of paper to use. The guy had no intention of putting any money in the movie. There was nothing connecting the money that I could see to the film that we were trying to put together. So we used to have the phrase "prove the money," and I've had to change that now to move the money
into an account that we all agree on.
Yeah. We'll establish the account, you put the money in. And unfortunately it's come to that, because if they're not willing to actually move funds
into an escrow account, it's, by the way, that's an escrow account. That's not like a personal account for you. It's an escrow account.
Like a place to tuck that anybody can touch it.
Right.
But just to the physical movement of the funds. Now we have a basis for a conversation. Even then, that's all it is. Right? Because they can take it back out. But at least if it's there, now I have a basis for a conversation to engage. So, what I tell, and this kind of ties into your hypothetical scenario about the filmmaker, that was making the first movie, is that really what I did at the beginning was I got on IMDb Pro back then. This was 20 years ago. And I found a filmmaker randomly who I believed sort of somebody who I felt like, I looked at a couple of them, but I started taking people out to lunch. I started meeting people on the phone. Now, I was in a unique position because I had investors, but I didn't have any projects. I didn't even know what that meant. I didn't even know what the requirements were. I didn't know any of that. Mm-hmm. So I went out, I found this executive producer who, my deal was, I will bring my investors to you. In exchange, I want to be a part of all of this. I want to learn. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I want to learn. I want money. I want a credit. I want to build something. So I was in a unique situation, but it worked because by being in those rooms and listening to those meetings and actively participating in all of these conversations, I got to a point where after a while, I thought, I got this. I can do this now on my own. I feel confident enough in being able to do it on my own. And I had watched her make her own mistakes. So I knew what not to do in a lot of cases. So I think today, it's hard to do. I'm not suggesting for a moment it's easy, but I'm saying it because it happens because I'm on the receiving side of that now. So a lot of the times I'll get these random emails and stuff, especially like on LinkedIn. Mm-hmm. People say, I'm looking for an executive producer. So for me, executive producer is code for money. So when somebody says to me, I'm looking for an executive producer, my response is, how much? I'm looking for an executive producer. How much do you need? Because they who are you kidding? But at the same time, being able to partner or be mentored by or find some way of getting to be around the people who are doing it and are doing it well and who are trustworthy, and have good names and reputations in the industry is really a good way to get started. Because, you were joking, but the truth is most of these people that I meet, they are on the creative side and they don't want to do this stuff. They don't want to learn this stuff. Right. They don't want it. And those people aren't the ones I'm interested in, because I don't want to work with them either. I want to work with people who want to work hard, figure this thing out and do it the right way. And it's more of a collaboration at that point, So that's really what you have to do. And because if you have a foundation like that, when that guy comes and shows up and says, hey, give me $50K and this is what I'll do for you, you have 2 or 3 point people like me, that have that kind of experience to be able to pick up the phone, shoot an email and go, hey, and I got probably 10 of those people out there in the world that I have an open policy with. If you have a problem, if you have an issue, if you just want me to look over an agreement or something, I'm happy to take a look at it in order to protect those filmmakers. And I'll tell you, but they have to build that relationship with those people. Mm-hmm. One of my biggest pet peeves is when somebody just shoots me an email with a pitch package.
I get them, and I'm not a financer. How does that work? Do your homework.
I must have got 2 or 3 of them today, right? There's no introduction. There's no nice to get to know you. There's no, hey, blah, blah, blah. They just literally send you this long email and then 5 attachments with their script and their pitch deck and all of this. And I'm like, hello, nice to meet you. Like, what happened to a rapport? What happened to earning?
I'm not a piece of meat. I'm not a piece of meat, sir. I have a heart. I have a soul. Try to get to know me, Franco.
But it's true. It's like,
it's right.
It's etiquette. It's courtesy. It's professional. It's diplomatic. It's like, because that's what I'm attracted to, right? I'm attracted to commitment. Mm-hmm. People who make commitment, people who are willing to go all in and make commitment. And there's a lot of people who say that, that they make commitment, but they're not really there.
Oh no.
I'm interested in people who are willing to go all in and make commitment, but I'm also interested only in people. Look, I say this all the time. I always say there's great projects and shitty people, pardon my French, right? And then there's shitty projects and great people.
Yes.
And there's great projects and great people. I want the great projects with the great people, because even if they're shitty projects but they're great people, we can go find another project that's not so shitty and we can still work together.
Right.
But if people is the problem, then I'm out. And anybody who feels that it's okay to bombard anybody's email, yours or mine, with just puking out all of this information without at least making the effort to establish some kind of a rapport is out in my book. And they might have a great project and I might pass it out. It might be the next big thing and I lost. But you know what? It would have been a nightmare, and I'm not interested in that.
And I've been saying this for years as well. If filmmakers do not understand, look, I'll go back. The problem I feel that a lot of filmmakers in general have, it is not their fault. They've been taught this old system from film schools and by Hollywood that you got to do this, 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 and this to get your movie made. And you don't have to worry about the business. We'll take care of it for you. But that's the message that's been sent out at film schools, and it's been sent out in the industry. Why? Because it benefits the industry. That's how the business works. That's Hollywood accounting. They don't want you to know too much about what goes on behind. They don't want you to know how the sausage is made. They don't want you in the room where the decisions are made, if I may go Hamilton. They don't want any of that, because once you are informed, you become harder to deal with, because now they can't scam you. So I think any filmmaker in today's world that does not understand the entire process, even at a rudimentary level, understand what the DP is doing and also understand what the distributor is doing at a simplistic level, you're going to get taken advantage of in one way, shape, or form from somewhere. So you need to understand the entire ecosystem, the entire process as much as possible. Look what you did when you were first starting out. You're like, I want to learn everything. I want to know about everything. I'm not going to hire you to DP my film. I know that, but you know what a good DP is. And you know when a good DP is trying to pull one on you because they want something cool for their reel, and they're not making their hours and they're not making their pages because I need to get this one shot. That's nice, but we need to move it along.
Yeah.
Am I right?
Yeah. Yeah, you're 100% right. And, one of the things I'm often quoted as saying is that film school teaches you how to make a movie, but who's going to teach you how to get a movie made? Mm-hmm. So those are two different things. And it is my opinion, based on experience, that film schools literally, like you just alluded to, they don't want you to know the stuff that I teach people, because they're going to scare these guys away. They're going to scare them away. So what happens is these people go out and spend 30, 40, 50, whatever $1,000 on film school.
A year.
Yeah, a year. Yeah. So I'm not taking that away in terms of the value from an artistic, creative perspective. Mm-hmm. But then they graduate, then they come knocking on my door, and they're like, dude, what do I do? Like, I don't even know step one. I don't even know where to start. And so that's actually one of the reasons why initially why I created the development program, is because it occurred to me that these are really talented people that have just spent all this money and they don't even know step one, they need to be educated. Somebody had to pick up where film school left off and say, look, let me show you how this works. Let me at least explain, like you said, the basics. Let me at least explain it to you so that you understand the basic concepts of financing, equity, debt, tax credit financing, distribution, casting, every element, legal, really post-production, budgeting, scheduling, all of the stuff that they just don't have. They don't see it in relationship, at least, to actually going out and raising money and putting funds together. So I think it's a big void. It's been great for me in the sense that, I've been able to build a whole branch of my company based on educating people that fit into that category, and they love it. They love it. But that's the point. If they don't love it, I don't want them there.
No, absolutely. Well, because look, it's
a course. I want them to be excited. I have this one couple I talk to, I do this on Skype because most of these people don't live. And literally every Monday, we can't wait to sit in front of our computers and talk to each other, because we just know that for an hour and a half, we're going to have a lot of fun while they're learning how to do this. And they're so excited and animated, and it just gives me such joy to be able to work with them. And that's what the people I want to invest my time and energy into.
Right. No, without question. But the thing is, and that's where a lot of filmmakers get caught up in, is, I've said this a lot of times, Hollywood's really good at selling the sizzle, not so much the steak, but the sizzle, man. They're the best in the world at the sizzle. And film schools, they sell the sexy part of this process. It's sexy to work with the actors. To work with the actors, to play with the camera and the lenses and editing and all that. It's really sexy to kind of be the creative part. But when you're done with that product, it's really sexy to bake. Like, like all those baking shows, like, oh, look at these cool things I'm making. It's all great. Look at this cake that, explodes and does all this stuff. It's fantastic. Now, how are you going to make a business out of that product?
Yeah.
And that's the thing that nobody talks about, because that's not the sexy part. I love that part. I think it is the sexy part. It's more exciting. It's actually one of the most exciting part. Marketing and the business side excites me a lot, being a film entrepreneur. So I really do love that part of it. But most filmmakers just want to sit back, go to the red carpet, sign the autographs, hang out with the actors, and play the role, but then play the role at a $3,000 budget. Don't play the role at a $3 million budget.
Your own money. Yeah. Don't come to us. Yeah. And I do, I feel that same way. Like, because I am that, like, I live that. I love it. I love the development process. I love watching people, the light go on and go, oh my God, that's such great information. I feel so good, because what happens is, by the time we finish, my job with first and second time filmmakers, yes, education, but empowerment. Like, I want them to be able to go out into that world and have those meetings and sit in front of those people and really have a good, solid foundation and a confidence about them, an air of confidence about them, that they can sit down. And if they happen to meet somebody on a subway or a restaurant and they spark up a conversation about they're making a movie, and the woman happens to be an investor and they're curious, I want them to be able to sit there and hold their own and have a conversation. They may get to a point where they go, you know what? I better shut my mouth and have Franco talk to these people, because I don't want to say the wrong thing. But I want them to be able to be empowered, to be able to be confident enough to be able to initiate. Because when you're talking to investors, it's a different language. And this is what I tell people. People say to me all the time, what's the number one thing that filmmakers do wrong when it comes to raising money? And I always say, and I've said it, you've heard me say it a million times, they go out too soon. They're not ready. They're not prepared. They're not in the position to be talking about that. And part of the reason is because they're pitching story to money people. It doesn't compute. They're pitching story. Story's critical. It's important. But an investor doesn't know what you're talking about, goes right over their head, and they're going to walk away and go, "What a freaking nut job! That guy asked me for $2 million, and I got nothing. I got a story."
Isn't it an equivalent of me going to the bank and going, I want a small business loan and I'm going to open up a bakery, and all I talk about is the ingredients, the fondant, the how it's layered, how many, the cupcakes and how beautiful. That's all I talk about is the product. I have no understanding about how I'm going to make money with this, but that's the equivalent. It's the equivalent. You can't talk story or creative to business people. It doesn't work that way.
And in what other business in the world is that okay? Why is it okay for us? Like, that's the part that bothers me. I think I might have told you this before, but a guy come up to me after one of my seminars, and he says to me, "I'm so frustrated." He says, "I've had 5 investors. I pitched my movie to 5 investors, and every one of them has shut me down." He says, "What am I doing wrong?" And the first thing I said was, "You had 5 investors, really?" Because no, you didn't. You might have had 1 or maybe 2, but you didn't have 5. So let's start there. All right. Because there's a lot of this going on out there. And 3 of those are BS. All right. So you didn't have 5. That makes you feel any better. You didn't lose. Again, but if you even had 1, like I said, what are you saying? Like, if 5 people walked away and said, "No, what are you saying?" Because maybe something you're saying is making them say no. And I said, "Give me your elevator pitch." He pitched the story. I said, "Sounds great. Now what?" He was like, "Well, that's it." And I'm like, "That's it?" Like, that's it.
All right.
Yeah. And how much you need? $2.5 million. Oh, really? Okay. That's cool. So you have, I said, so do me a favor. And I love playing this for people. I said, so do me a favor. I said, and I gave him my business card. I said, "Can you email me?" He goes, yeah. I said, no, not your script. I don't want your script. I said, "I want you to email me your budget, the $2.5 million budget." And the guy's face just dropped. And I said, "What's the matter?" He says, "Oh, I don't have a budget." I said, "You're already spoken to 5 investors asking for $2.5 million, and you don't even have a. You don't even know if it actually is $2.5 million, like,
or a schedule, or a cast, nothing,
or a proposal, or anything." He's literally pitching story to money people, and it doesn't compute. It's a disconnect. So what I do is I spend time educating people on how to speak to investors, not just where to find them, how to find them, and what to do with them, but what to say to them. Oh, more importantly, what not to say to them. And that way, whether I'm in the room or not, because more often than not, I am to help support them, they can keep up. Like, they're in it. They're not sitting all in the corner going, "I hope Franco closes this guy." You know what I mean? They're like, "This is my movie, man, and I'm here to sell it, and I'm empowered because I know I'm ready. Hit me with the questions. I've got the answers. And if I don't, this guy will help me." That's what you want to do. And that's why I'm saying partner with, with people who do have that base of experience, and don't try to go it alone.
I know this has been an epic conversation so far, and I know we could talk for another 3 or 4 hours, but I do want to ask you one last question because I think it's very important that we talk about this. What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on the changing world of the film market? Because you and I have gone to AFM many times. I know you go to Cannes and all the, to many other film markets. This year alone, I think it's going to be very interesting. MIPTY has already got canceled. I don't see how Cannes is going to be able to go, which is insane to say out loud. But I know Berlin it just happened or is finishing happening or something. But I've heard through reports that it was pretty empty, and the Chinese market, the guys were not there. So where do you see, before the coronavirus showed up, it was already starting to go, the world has changed. How do you feel that these film markets are going to, what place do you see these film markets going? Because it is built on a time of the 70s, 80s, 90s, and early 2000s. That's when the markets really were kind of in their prime, where now there's so many other options. I'm just curious on what part they are going to play in this new ecosystem that we're moving forward with. I think they still have a place in the ecosystem, and there's things you can do in a market you just can't do anywhere else. But I'd love to hear. Right. I'd love to hear your point of view.
Yeah, it's because just like in any other industry, face to face, is the best, most
Or mask to
productive.
mask, mask to mask, mask to mask.
Right. It's definitely the most productive way to conduct business, right? And so that's what the hype is around all of the markets, right? Because it's exciting. You get to travel around the world, you get to meet people. A lot of times you're meeting people that you see year after year, so you're reconnecting with people. That's one of the things that I love about the market, particularly AFM, because it's right here. And but I think that there's been a lot of this stems from the first conversation we had about the purge that's about to take place around distribution, because that's what the markets are for, right? It's buying and selling and promoting film. And so if the core of that is unstable, which it is, which is what I think the purge is going to at least address. I don't know if it's going to necessarily rectify it. Then that foundation is shaken. And then you add the coronavirus thing on top of it, where people are going to just be gone. Nobody's going to show up. And I think that that's all going to contribute. I think it's going to go way bigger than just distributors having, or sales people having to wake up to a new reality of the way they have to conduct themselves in terms of their internal business models, but on a global scale. And I think it's going to be a hit. I think the virus is going to be the biggest part of it. I think, like I said, next year or the year after that, it'll recover, but it'll never be the same. It's never going to be the same. And I think in a lot of ways that might be a good thing, because, the traffic is down and the crowds are different. Like it's a different.
Oh, it was a lot of filmmakers. It was a lot of filmmakers this year at AFM. A lot of filmmakers, as opposed to a lot of distributors.
Right. And here's the thing. There's a lot of filmmakers going to AFM for the wrong reason.
You mean selling their story?
Yeah. They're walking in with pitch decks trying to get distributors to come on board their project before they even have any money, or they haven't even done any development. Sometimes they have. Right. So that's what's happening. In my opinion, it's turning into sort of a money pit, because, and it's great. I love it because I get to go and see my friends every year, but also I get to meet these people from all around the world. And a lot of the filmmakers that I work with are from around the world. My relationship is built completely on a computer, Skype. So it might be the one time in 3 years that I'm ever actually going to meet people that I've been working with all along and be able to sit down and have a drink or a meal with. So from a social aspect, I think it's a very powerful place. But from a business perspective, it's just starting to every year, it's just changing more and more and more. I mean, I do think that at AFM specifically, it was probably a good move to kind of restrict who can come in, because I know I remember the years when crazy we used to run through bikinis and trying to, all that crazy stuff. And I do think that sort of took away. It was fun for a minute, but I think it took away from the seriousness of the business at hand for serious filmmakers and buyers. But I also think that it's kind of gone a little too far now, and people it's like you feel like you can't even move, around there. So I don't know. It's hard to say. I don't know what the answer is. I do think that this industry as a whole is extraordinarily resilient. We've gone through so much. I mean, all the way back to the writer's strike and, everything that.
World War II. I mean, Jesus. I mean,
yeah, it's a resilient business. And like I say, I think that we've had enough lead time now as indie people that we've established who we are out there in the world. I don't think we're going to have to, we're going to suffer any more or less than anybody else. But I do think it's the kind of thing that's just going to have to play itself out and see what the repercussions are of this lack of physical attendance, and try to maneuver a way to be able to continue to manage to do business on the global market in terms of sales and distribution without necessarily getting on a plane and going to France,
Right. I mean, that's nice though. I mean, it's nice to go to France and to go to Cannes. It's a fun time.
It's what makes it such an exciting business to be in, is to be able to travel around the world or the country and be able to explore all of this is literally your job. It's part of your job, so
Right.
that is great. And I think that will return after this thing settles out.
It's going to transform like everything else. Like everything settles in after VHS, after DVD, after streaming. There's just different evolutions, and it's just happening faster and faster and faster and faster nowadays.
Yeah, and every single time we all thought it was going to be a catastrophe and life was over as we knew it. And it was in a way, but then it got better, or something new came along. And so I think we are all going to be fine. I think the most important thing for everybody right now is to just really stay focused on the present, like what's in front of us, the projects that we're working on, and make the commitment to the thing that's right in front of us. I've got 2 or 3 right now, to be able to focus on. I've got projects coming in from different directions, and I don't want to shift the way I do things, because what I'm doing has been working for me and for the filmmakers. So I don't want to change that until it becomes a situation where I'm forced to, in order to adapt to whatever this is that's going to be coming down the road.
Franco, this has been an epic conversation, as I knew it would be. This is going to be a mandatory listen for anybody in the Indie Film Hustle tribe and the Film Entrepreneur tribe, because this is a wealth of information. You've spit out some amazing knowledge bombs today. So I do truly appreciate it. Now, I warn you, my last thing I'm going to say, be careful what you wish for. How do people find you, sir? Your home address and phone number would be best.
Yeah. Well, maybe I'll take the computer and I'll show you my building. Or,
Exactly.
for starters, this year, my Samako Films headquarters has moved. Very proud to say we are now on the lot at Los Angeles Center Studios, which is downtown LA. Great little independent film studio. So I'm very happy to be there. It's great to be on a lot, to be in that environment, be in that creative environment every single day. So that's where we physically are, at LA Center Studios downtown. But the best way to reach me is really just directly through email. Mm-hmm. There's 2 ways you can get to me. It's my website, of course, which is just samakofilms.com. And I do recommend people go kind of take a look. They can see all the films I've done, but also they can see the films that are in development and the projects that we're working on moving forward. And my email, I'm happy to give it out. I always have.
Just be careful. Just be careful.
I always do it. And my email is simple. It's just franco@samakofilms.com. And so by all means, people are welcome to either email me through the website or email me directly if they have any particular questions or anything that they would like to run by me. If anybody's interested in the development program, I can send them information on that, or I do a one-on-one 6-week course that they could inquire about too. Most of that information is on the website, but otherwise they can just reach out to me, and it might take me a moment to get back to people. So I ask them to be patient, because you're absolutely right. I expect a good influx of emails, and I welcome them.
Sure.
It just might take some time to kind of cut my way through them.
So then just make sure you when you email, send your script, your pitch deck. Do not introduce yourself, and just tell them your story. That's the protocol. That's the protocol.
Don't even hello. Not even interested in hello. Just
Franco, man, it has been an absolute pleasure. We have to do this at least more than once every 2 years, because things are changing so rapidly. And we are on the front line. So I do appreciate you, brother. Thank you so much for doing what you do and trying to help as many filmmakers as you are, man. Thanks again.
Thank you, Alex. I appreciate it as well. Take care.